Diana Ross. The woman who once brought the world to its feet when she stepped onto the stage, now lives alone in a $1 million mansion nestled among the quiet hills of Beverly Hills. No more flashing lights, no more roaring crowds. Once hailed as the Queen of Motown with a net worth of over $250 million, she remains an essential name in the history of American music. But behind that dazzling spotlight lie shocking secrets only she holds. There was a time when she vanished without a trace for days. Police found her alone, intoxicated, in a car in the middle of the Arizona desert. The press called it the fall of a legend, but no one asked what really happened. Then there was the romance with the record label boss, a child born whose father's identity was hidden for over a decade. She's never told her full story, but the milestones, the pain, and the choices across her 80 years, they're why Diana Ross still lingers in the hearts of Americans. And now it's time to look back at it all, from her early days of struggle to the moment she reached the pinnacle and the sacrifices she made to keep that light shining. Diana Ross's first home was nothing like the $1 million mansions she'd later own. It was a small wooden house at 635 Belmont Street, tucked away in the poor north end of Detroit, where 6 children squeezed into 2 cramped bedrooms, and every winter was a struggle to stay warm. Born in 1944, Diana grew up in a working-class African-American family during a time when racial segregation was still deeply entrenched. Her father was a soldier who'd returned from World War II, and her mother stayed home to raise the kids. The family scraped by on a modest income, with little to spare for their children's needs, when her mother fell ill with tuberculosis. Diana, at just 7 years old, was sent to Alabama to live with her grandparents for a few years. It was a time of separation from her parents, learning to fend for herself in an unfamiliar place. As she grew older, she returned to Detroit and lived in the Brewster Douglass public housing projects, a place known for unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. Diana attended Cass Technical High School, one of the few schools offering arts classes, but most of her time outside school was spent working at Hudson's department store and doing hair on the side to make ends meet. Despite a life filled with hardship, she chased her music dreams through amateur performances at a local community hall show. Her voice caught attention not for its volume or polish, but for the raw emotion of a young girl who'd already faced so much. Could that one chance moment be enough to change the fate of a black girl from the slums? Before living in $1 million mansions and being honored at the Grammys, Diana Ross was kicked out of a recording studio for being too amateur. She sang at county fairs, faced ridicule, and was told she had no future. But just a few years later, all of America was listening to her voice. What happened between those two worlds? In 1959, at just 15 years old, Diana joined the Premettes, a makeshift girl group formed by friends. They performed at fairs, weddings, and small Detroit clubs, hoping for enough gas money and a round of applause. One day, the group auditioned at Motown. Diana sang "There Goes My Baby," but Berry Gordy dismissed her with a single line, "Too amateur." Go home. Would Motown ever give Diana Ross another chance? Diana didn't stop singing. By day, she worked at Hudson's department store. At night, she practiced in her cramped bedroom, using a hairbrush as a microphone. In 1961, the group renamed itself The Supremes and signed with Motown, but their first 4 singles flopped. Critics called them Motown's disappointment. One day, Diana read a scathing review of the group and cried in frustration. Instead of giving up, she replayed their recordings and quietly kept practicing. In 1964, "Where Did Our Love Go" unexpectedly soared to #1 on the Billboard charts, hearing it on the radio. Diana smiled brightly for the first time in years of doubt. The Supremes racked up 10 #1 hits, performed on The Ed Sullivan Show, and became the most successful female group in America. But glory didn't bring peace. In the South, white audiences threw beer cans and shouted "Get out" during their shows. Diana stood tall, refusing to back down. She sang with everything she had, as if every lyric was a quiet act of defiance. Within the group, tensions simmered. In 1967, Florence Ballard was fired after a heated argument. Diana was accused of stealing the spotlight and being too favored. In truth, she was trying to keep the group from falling apart. Off stage, Diana carried a heavy secret since 1965. She'd been dating Berry Gordy, the Motown boss who once rejected her. Their relationship was both a support and a burden. She feared being seen as someone who climbed the ladder through romance, worried others would dismiss her genuine hard work. By 1970, Diana left the Supremes to pursue a solo career. She was anxious, compared relentlessly, and doubted. Without the group, she's nothing, some said. But just months later, Ain't No Mountain High Enough shot straight to #1. Diana overcame prejudice, criticism, and the towering shadow of her past. But in the world of showbiz, holding onto the spotlight is always harder than reaching it. She was once dismissed as too ordinary to be famous, but by the 1970s, Diana Ross was no longer just a promising voice, she was a star. And the whole world knew it. Leaving the Supremes in 1970, Diana launched her solo career with the hit Ain't No Mountain High Enough, a single that clinched the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Her debut album sold over 1 million copies in just a few months. It wasn't a fluke, it was a declaration of greatness. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, she churned out chart-topping hits like Touch Me in the Morning, Love Hangover, Upside Down, and Endless Love, a duet with Lionel Richie that set sales records. To date, Diana has sold over 75 million records worldwide. Beyond music, she made her mark in film as Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues in 1972, earning an Oscar nomination. The movie grossed over $5 million in its opening week, a remarkable figure for a black leading lady at the time. With over 4 decades on stage, sold-out concerts, endorsement deals, music royalties, and television ventures, Diana Ross has built a fortune estimated at about $270 million. That number doesn't just reflect fame, it's proof of rare endurance in the entertainment world. From a voice once called nothing special, Diana Ross didn't just conquer the stage, she built a world of her own, where every brick stands as evidence of extraordinary effort. At 30 years old, while many peers were still renting apartments or staying in hotels, Diana moved into a 12,500 square foot mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, a place that was more than real estate, but a silent stage for her life after the spotlight. That property was once listed for $39.5 million. Built in a classic European style, it boasts a limestone facade, hand-forged iron gates, and a grand foyer with an Italian marble fireplace. The main dining room can seat 30, but Diana rarely hosted lavish parties. She used it for intimate dinners with close friends, people who knew the real her. Not just the diva on stage. Upstairs, a private music library holds hundreds of cassette tapes and unreleased demo recording songs she made for herself. Not for sale, she once told a dear friend. Some songs aren't for others to hear, they're to remind me I'm still alive, still singing. The backyard features a rose garden, a koi pond, and a small greenhouse where Diana grows orchids and herbs. It was here, in 2014, that she hosted her son Evan's wedding. The garden glowed with white candles, silk ribbons tied around chairs, and the faint scent of lavender in the air. Amid it all, Diana sat quietly by the stone pathway, draped in a satin robe, smiling as if singing a melody only she could hear. If Greenwich symbolized achievement, her seaside villa in Malibu, worth about $3.5 to $4 million, was where she let herself unravel gently, privately, with nothing left to prove. Perched by the water, its floor-to-ceiling glass walls face west, catching every Pacific sunset. In the afternoons, golden light floods the living room, reflecting off the only painting on the wall, an abstract portrait of a woman without eyes or mouth, as if listening to everything without needing to speak. In the bedroom, feather pillows are neatly aligned. By the bed sits a small, weathered wooden table holding the only photo she keeps from her childhood, a young girl in a worn wool dress, standing in front of the rundown Brewster Douglas housing projects. It's not there to boast of her past, but to ensure she never forgets where she came from. Unlike many Hollywood stars who choose opulent estates to flaunt status, Diana's homes don't show off. They're spaces to live and silent diaries. Each one marks a chapter: struggle, triumph, and finally, self-understanding. If Diana Ross's homes reflect where she chooses to pause, her cars are proof of how she moved not just through cities, but through phases of her life. In the 1970s, Diana was often seen with her 1967 Jaguar E-Type Roadster, one of the era's most beloved sports cars, jet black, convertible, with cream leather seats. It was worth about $70,000 to $90,000 back then. But its real value was in the statement: a black woman driving one of the world's sexiest cars through the heart of New York. No chauffeur, no entourage, just her and the music inside. Whenever she drove that Jaguar to the studio or an event, Diana curated her playlist: old jazz, some French film scores, and a touch of vintage Motown to remind herself, "I'm here because I started so far from this place." By the 1980s, after signing a deal with RCA worth over $20 million, her car changed. From Sunset Boulevard to the Pacific Coast Highway, she appeared in a champagne-colored Rolls-Royce Silver Spur, with hand-stitched leather interiors and imported ebony wood paneling, priced at about $140,000 to $160,000 at the time. It was customized to her taste, the back seat tailored to her petite frame, the sound system designed to play original cassette tapes in pristine quality. It wasn't just a car, it was a mobile backstage. She'd write lyrics, tweak tour set lists, or simply do her makeup en route to the stage around the same time. She owned a Ferrari 308 GTS, the model famously featured in Magnum PI, bright red and built for speed. It was the opposite of the Rolls-Royce. She drove it alone, often on early weekend mornings to the beach, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a silk scarf tied around her hair. Her daughter once shared, "Mom drove that Ferrari like she was racing her own youth." Despite owning luxury cars, Diana never chased quantity. She didn't collect cars, she chose them like songs: the right melody, the right moment, the right reflection of her. In recent years, she rarely drives herself, relying on trusted longtime drivers or family members, but each car remains meticulously maintained in her garage as if they're chapters she's not ready to close. For Diana Ross, cars were never just objects. They were companions, silent stages where she could be herself. No lights, no praise, no cameras. Diana Ross picked cars like she picked stages: elegant, keeping the world at just the right distance. But when she wasn't on the move, her life was quieter, simpler, and surprisingly understated. Unlike many Motown stars, Diana didn't dive into flashy shopping sprees or all-night parties. She's known for an almost secretive frugality. In a rare early 2000s interview, she said, "I don't spend money to prove anything. I spend to hold on to what I need." Her one consistent indulgence over decades has been collecting modern art. Her personal collection, valued at over $2 million, includes works by Jean-Michel Basquiat, Sam Gilliam, and Keith Haring. Even this is displayed discreetly, behind closed doors, hidden from unfamiliar guests. Each morning, Diana rises at 6, brews mint tea, and plays classical music, often Mahler or Billie Holiday. She spends 30 minutes reading, jotting a few lines in her notebook, then starts her day. To her, it's not an artist's routine, it's how she stays grounded in a world that could easily sweep her away. In her free time, she tends to plants in her greenhouse, strolls through her garden, or plays with her Labrador, Spinning, whom she's had since 2012. On rare special occasions, she appears publicly, usually for music-related events or performances by her children or grandchildren. Her spending today focuses on family, health, art, and maintaining her private spaces. Major investments have tapered off. She's turned down lucrative endorsement deals, unwilling to be a face for things I don't believe in. From the stage lights to her morning kitchen, Diana Ross no longer lives to impress. She lives to preserve what remains: peace, independence, and memories. After all the fame, wealth, and stages, there's one role Diana Ross never wants to let go: being a mother. She has 5 children, born across different stages of her career, but raised with the same constant: their mother's steady presence. Despite grueling tour schedules in the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, Diana always found ways to anchor family life. She called during tours, sent handwritten letters from hotels, and made it home for her kids' birthdays, even if only for a few hours. To her children, Diana wasn't a star, but the mom who made breakfast, picked out school clothes, and sometimes scolded them for messy rooms, strict yet tender. She taught them not to measure their worth by fame's glow. Her eldest daughter, Rhonda Ross, once shared, "Mom always said, don't live to stand out, live to be true to yourself." That stayed with me my whole life. Tracy Ellis Ross, the successful TV actress, admitted that even in front of millions. Her mother's gaze is the one that pushes her to do her best. For Diana, family isn't about magazine covers, it's in the moments no one sees. A simple dinner with everyone together, a Sunday with no plans, or just watching old VHS tapes from her 1980s tours with her grandkids, laughing together when she trips on stage. The greatest stage in Diana Ross's life isn't in New York or Los Angeles. It's in her living room, where she sings lullabies to her grandchildren with the same voice that once hushed a nation. Diana Ross once graced the world's grandest stages with the calm of a legend, but life beyond the spotlight, where there's no background music, no scripted lines, was where she had to learn to stand up, not for an audience, but for herself. There are things Diana Ross kept private for years, not to hide, but because she knew some truths need time. When her eldest daughter, Rhonda Ross, was born in 1971, the media assumed she was the child of Diana's legal husband, Robert Ellis Silberstein. The truth was that Rhonda was born from Diana's earlier relationship with Motown's Berry Gordy for 13 years. That secret stayed untouched, not to protect her fame, but to shield her daughter from the whispers of gossip. When Rhonda learned the truth, she wasn't shocked, as she later shared. Her mother never hid her emotions, she just waited for the right moment to speak. Nearly 2 decades later, Diana thought she'd found peace in her marriage to Norwegian businessman Arne Nace Jr. They wed in 1986, traveling the world, embracing new chapters together. But in 2000, the marriage ended quietly. Diana stayed out of the headlines, gave no interviews. Close friends said she was silent for weeks, not singing, not stepping into her garden, not inviting anyone over. Then, just 4 years later, Arne died in a mountaineering accident in South Africa. Once again, Diana chose not to attend the funeral, not because she didn't grieve, but because some losses don't need to be shared with the world. In 2002, Diana made headlines again, this time, not for music. She was arrested for driving under the influence in Arizona, held for only 2 days. The image of her in a white shirt, hands cuffed, head slightly bowed, became fodder for criticism. People called it the fall of an icon, but for Diana, it wasn't a fall. It was the moment she realized fame doesn't shield anyone from exhaustion, hurt, or mistakes. She disappeared from public view for a long stretch. Then, unexpectedly, in 2017, at 73 years old, Diana returned at the American Music Awards, not to explain herself, not to start over, but to sing. The song wasn't brand new. Her voice wasn't what it once was, but behind her stood her children and grandchildren, holding her hands as they stepped into the light together. She smiled, arms outstretched, as if telling the audience, "I'm still here, no matter what, I'm still me." She's not someone who's never stumbled. She's someone who learned to keep walking without needing to walk perfectly. Leaving behind a song is easy. Leaving behind a legacy that takes a lifetime. So what keeps Diana Ross's name alive, even after decades have passed? From the late 1960s, she wasn't just the lead voice of the Supremes. She was the first image of a black woman stepping onto national television in a glamorous gown, impeccably made up, with a commanding presence embraced by both white and black America. For millions of young girls, it wasn't just entertainment, it was a declaration of their right to be seen. Artists like Beyoncé, Janet Jackson, and Mary J. Blige have all called Diana Ross a trailblazer. Madonna once said she learned how to command a stage from Diana's confidence. Michael Jackson, who called her his godmother, described her as a walking school of music, style, and surviving the entertainment industry. In 2012, she received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award not for a single song, but for her vast influence. In 2016, President Barack Obama presented her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor, noting, "Diana Ross didn't just change music, she changed how a generation saw black women." Beyond accolades, she kept performing well into her 80s. In 2022, Diana Ross became the oldest artist to perform at Glastonbury Festival, standing before over 200,000 fans with her iconic curly hair and a voice still brimming with power. In 2023, she launched the Music Legacy Tour not to promote a new album, but to say thank you. Each show was a journey back to old songs, to audiences who grew up with her music, and to the past of a little girl from Detroit's slums. Diana Ross has lived through golden eras, dark days, dazzling fame, and quiet loneliness, but she's never left the hearts of her listeners because her voice carries more than music. It carries a way of living. So what about you when the lights go out one day? What part of you will remain?